Imagine you're just trying to go about your day when suddenly you find yourself in a situation that turns everything upside down. That's exactly what happens in today's video, where a female cop can't handle being ignored. You won't believe how this tense encounter unfolds. It all starts with a routine ID check, but when the driver decides to refuse to cooperate, the situation takes a hilarious turn. The officer, clearly not used to being dismissed so easily, tries to stay calm. But the more she insists, the more the tension builds, until it's impossible to ignore how this simple interaction spirals into a full-blown standoff. Will she manage to regain control, or will the driver's stubbornness push things over the edge? You'll have to stick around to see just how this all plays out. This is Refusal number 116. And trust me, you've never seen a cop get ignored like this before. Stay tuned as the drama unfolds, because things are about to get even more awkward. The tension between the cop and the driver keeps rising, with neither willing to back down. The officer, a seasoned cop with years of experience on the force, is clearly frustrated. She's used to handling difficult situations, but this is different. The refusal to comply, without even a hint of concern, throws her off guard. In her eyes, this isn't just about getting the ID anymore. It's about asserting control, about showing who's in charge. And the longer the driver stays silent, the more her patience wears thin. Meanwhile, the driver remains calm, almost unfazed. There's no fear, no rush to argue, just a simple refusal to comply with a request that's usually no big deal. He's not aggressive or threatening, but his calmness seems to make the situation even more intense. As the minutes drag on, the cop grows visibly more frustrated. She tries different angles, asking politely, then sternly, but the driver doesn't flinch. His stubbornness is almost comical, but the officer isn't laughing. It's clear now the refusal to show his ID is personal for him. But why? What's going on behind the scenes? The questions linger, and the standoff continues, leaving both characters stuck in a battle of wills. The standoff drags on, with the officer pacing beside the car, her hand resting on her holstered gun. Her fingers twitch slightly, a sign of the mounting frustration building inside her. She's done this 1,000 times before. Routine traffic stops, straightforward interactions. But something about this feels off. There's no clear reason for the driver's defiance, no obvious threat to justify the tension hanging in the air. Yet it's as if the refusal to comply has become the issue in itself. From the driver's side, the man doesn't speak a word. He stares straight ahead, his posture rigid, eyes locked on the rearview mirror, avoiding eye contact. His silence is unnerving, so simple, yet so powerful. He doesn't seem scared, but neither does he appear confident. Is he hiding something? Or is this just a game of pride, an act of defiance for the sake of it? The officer can't help but wonder. Behind the wheel, the driver's mind races. His thoughts flicker back to the reason he's even in this situation in the first place. A mistake made years ago, one that's followed him ever since. He spent so much time trying to stay off the radar, to avoid trouble, but now it feels like it's all crashing down at once. This isn't about the ID. It's about his past, a past that's catching up with him faster than he can outrun it. The officer circles back to the driver's window, her voice now tight with tension. "You're really going to do this?" she asks, but the man doesn't flinch. His refusal is like a challenge, daring her to do something about it. The silence stretches between them like a living thing, suffocating the air. For the cop, every second feels like an eternity. She can't shake the sense that she's missing something important, something hidden just beneath the surface. The car feels too small for the weight of the unspoken words between them, the tension palpable in the way the engine hums quietly beneath them. She wishes he would just speak, but he remains quiet, almost as if he's waiting for her to make the first move. The driver's grip tightens on the wheel. He knows he's reached the point of no return. No matter what happens next, there's no going back. The officer's patience is wearing thin. Every time she glances at the driver, her irritation grows. The silence is like a weight pressing down on her chest. It's not just the refusal to provide ID anymore. It's the defiance, the power play. The longer this goes on, the more she feels like she's losing control of the situation. And that's something she just can't tolerate. Her hand hovers near her radio, ready to call for backup if things escalate. But something makes her hesitate. A gut feeling, deep down, that there's more to this standoff than meets the eye. The driver's still not moving, not speaking, just sitting there like a statue. It's almost as if he's daring her to do something. And then, as if reading her thoughts, he shifts ever so slightly, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. It's the first movement he's made in minutes, and it's enough to send a chill down her spine. She takes a deep breath and steps back, scanning the surrounding area, her mind racing. What if this is some kind of test? What if he's waiting for her to make the wrong move? She knows she can't afford to let things spiral out of control. But the longer they stay locked in this battle of wills, the more it feels like the stakes are rising. The driver, on the other hand, is almost eerily calm. But deep inside, his heart is pounding. Every second feels like an eternity. He knows his options are running out, but he refuses to give in. Not now. Not when he's this close. His thoughts are a whirlwind of panic and resolve. He can't afford to be caught, not yet, not after everything. His past, his mistakes are closing in on him. And this small moment, this simple refusal, might be the only thing standing between him and whatever consequences lie in wait. The officer's voice breaks the tension. Last chance, she says, her tone clipped, almost too controlled. But inside, she's starting to lose the battle with her own frustration. You're not walking away from this without consequences. But the driver remains unfazed, still staring straight ahead. The seconds stretch on, and neither side is willing to give in. Both are stuck, locked in a high-stakes game where the slightest wrong move could lead to chaos. The tension is almost unbearable now, and with every passing moment, it feels like something has to break. The driver shifts again, his body language changing, but not in the way the officer expects. She takes a cautious step forward, her eyes never leaving him, as the silence becomes deafening. And just as the officer is about to speak again, something unexpected happens. A noise, distant at first, but growing louder. A siren. The sound of backup, drawing closer, and the realization that whatever happens next is about to get much more complicated. The distant siren grows louder, pulling both the officer and the driver's attention. For a split second, they both freeze, as if waiting for the sound to explain what's about to happen next. But then, just as the sirens approach, something unexpected happens. The driver suddenly shifts into action. Without warning, his hand flies toward the dashboard, and before the officer can react, the car's engine roars to life, revving loudly as the tires screech against the pavement. For a moment, it feels like the world stops. The officer's instincts kick in, but she's a split second too late. The car lurches forward with a burst of speed, slamming into the curb and careening down the road in an abrupt getaway. The officer's heart races as she watches in disbelief, her hand instinctively going for her radio, but her thoughts are scattered. He's running. As the driver speeds off into the distance, a mixture of adrenaline and panic surges through him. His mind races, but it's too late to turn back now. He's made his choice. The sirens are growing louder, and every second feels like a countdown. The officer stands frozen for a moment, caught in the sudden chaos. Should she chase him, call for backup, or wait to see if he comes back on his own? But then something even more unsettling happens. As the car disappears around the corner, the officer hears a faint crackle over her radio. The voice on the other end is familiar. Unit 42, we've got a situation on the ground. Stay where you are. Backup's already in position. The officer's blood runs cold. It's not just a routine chase. There's something bigger going on. Something she wasn't aware of. Her pulse spikes as she looks around, the weight of the moment settling in. The driver wasn't just refusing to cooperate. He was running from something else entirely. Something far more dangerous than a simple traffic stop. With the backup approaching and the stakes climbing higher than ever, she's left with more questions than answers. What was he hiding? Why was he running? And who was behind the backup that's now closing in on her? The officer's heart pounds as she tries to make sense of the situation, her mind scrambling to connect the dots. She quickly reaches for her radio, her voice sharp and urgent. Unit 42, where's the backup? I need a location now. The crackling voice over the radio responds with an almost eerie calmness. Hold your position. We've got eyes on the suspect. Confused, she looks around, scanning the street for any sign of the suspect. The sirens are blaring now, and she can see flashing lights in the distance, but no one seems to be chasing the driver. She's about to move forward when a voice interrupts her thoughts. Officer, a calm voice says from behind her. She whips around, instinctively reaching for her gun, but the figure standing behind her is not who she expected. It's another officer, but his uniform looks different, clean, pressed, with a strange insignia on the sleeve. I've been assigned to assist you, he says, his voice too smooth, too calculated. The situation's escalated. We need to move quickly. A sinking feeling spreads through her as the officer hands her a folder, thick with paperwork. You'll find everything you need inside. Your suspect isn't who you think he is. She opens the folder in disbelief. The driver's name, the one she'd been chasing, isn't on the paperwork. Instead, it's a new name, an alias, one she recognizes all too well. It's the name of a high-profile criminal, someone she's seen in the news, someone involved in a major case that's been under investigation for months. But why was he on the run? Why hadn't anyone alerted her? As the pieces fall into place, she suddenly realizes the trap she's walked into. The backup was never meant to help her. It was part of the plan to keep her distracted. The man she'd been chasing wasn't just some random driver refusing to show his ID. He was bait, and the real target was her. Before she can react, the officer with the strange insignia smiles darkly and steps back, nodding toward a nearby van parked under the shadow of a building. The doors swing open, revealing a group of agents, all in tactical gear. They move swiftly toward her, but she's already backing away, her instincts screaming at her to escape. She reaches for her gun, but one of the agents calls out calmly, "It's too late, officer. You're already